Hello, everybody. It's Christian, also known as Salem Dory. I'm gonna talk about another video today, and what I want to talk about today is cerebral palsy and adaptability. Now, a lot of times in the disabled community, we talk about things that other people can do versus the things we feel like we can't do. And when I say feel, what I mean is the fact that we can do things everybody else does, just in a different way. And I want to talk about adaptability because a lot of times when you do have a disability, you have to adapt your life. Things aren't going to be done exactly the way other people do it, and you just have to work through it. Now, a lot of times in my life, I don't know if the rest of you have experienced this, but a lot of times in my life, with certain people, they come up to me and they're like, well, how could you do this or how could you do that? Like one time I was at like a party, let's say, and everybody was dancing. And a person in my life, I'm not going to name any names because this is social media, I don't do that. But I know a person who would come up to me and say, well, how could you dance? How could you have a good time and mess around? It's like, instead of saying, how could you do something? Why don't you go up to a person and say, how can you do this? Or how can you do that? Or how do you do it, I should say. How do you dance in a wheelchair? How do you do things that everybody else does in a wheelchair? And I want to talk about adaptability because that's a big part of having a disability. You have to be willing to adapt yourself to your situation. Now, for example, what I mean by that is other people could get up and go to the bathroom. If they gotta pee or if they gotta shit, whatever, they just get up and go. I can't do that. So in my bathroom, I have grab bars where I pull myself up, and I'm pretty sure I told you guys about this before, but I have grab bars where I pull myself up rather, and somebody has to assist me when I pull my pants down or things like that, but I'm still able to go to the bathroom. Granted, it's a different way, but I still obviously go to the bathroom. If I want to dance, I could just dance in my chair like this. I could, there's a lot of people who think that when you're disabled, your whole life is limited. And I want to show you guys that life is not limited just because you're in a wheelchair. You can still do the same things that everybody else does. Granted, maybe it has to be done differently than everybody else does because you're in. Excuse me a second. Gotta swallow. Because you're in a different situation, but it's still the same thing. And I hate people, and you guys, I don't know if you guys experience this too, but sometimes when you're disabled, people feel like they have to pity you or baby you. And what I mean by that is, people will come up to me and they'll be like, oh, I feel so bad for you. I feel so bad for you. And I'm like, why? Oh, because you can't walk. And I'm like, okay, well, there's people out there who can't talk. There's people out there who can't hear. There's people out there with the brain capacity of a toddler because that's what their disability does to them. They're totally limited to what they could do. They can't talk, they can't feed themselves, they can't speak, or whatever. And you're basically feeling bad for me just because I'm in a wheelchair? Yes, there's days where I have challenges. Yes, there's days where I get frustrated. It's not easy being in this situation. Let me tell you, as a person who goes through this day in and day out, it's not easy at all. But in my opinion, however, we could either feel bad for ourselves or we could get up and do something about our situation. Now, I'm the person who likes to take the bull by the horns, and I just want to get up there and do it. I don't want people to feel bad for me. I don't want people to say, oh, you have, your life is awful and stuff like that. I've literally had people come up to me and tell me that, oh, you must have an awful life. You must have an awful life because you're in a wheelchair and you can't do certain things that everybody else does. I probably do more in one day than an able-bodied person does in a whole week. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm literally saying that because it's true. There are people who are able-bodied and they don't do shit. They just sit there on their asses and do nothing all day. And that's the God's honest truth. But yet, I sit there and I bust my ass every day. I have pets that I take care of. I help my mom with the housework. I do my workouts. Obviously, I do my thing with the YouTube community as I'm doing now. So I do a lot. And people don't realize the effort it takes to do that. So it's almost like, you have challenges and, you're trying to work through life the best you can given the situation that you're in. It's not easy. But when you have somebody who comes up and tells you, oh, how could you do this? Or how could you do that with your situation? Or if you have people say, oh, I feel so bad for you. You know that life is hard. It's not going to be easy, especially being in a wheelchair. It's not a magic carpet ride like Aladdin. So, life is hard. It's not going to be easy. But when you have people coming up to you and telling you, oh, I can't imagine what you go through. Oh, it must be so hard to live like this every day. Yeah, it is hard to live like this. But you know what's even harder? And you know what's even more frustrating? The fact that people don't accept you as a person. They just see you as like this object to be pitied and to feel bad for you. If you really want to help a person in my situation, just go up to them and talk to them. Say, hello, how are you? What's going on today? Do you want to talk about how you feel? Like, do you have things on your mind? Go up to them and get to know them. Get to know what they're about. You don't have to feel bad for somebody. You just go up to them and talk to them like a regular person. And a lot of times I feel like when you're disabled, the rest of the world doesn't do that. Oh, we have to feel bad for them. We have to pity them because of all the challenges they face. No, I want to be treated like a regular person, just like everybody else does. I want to be accepted. And that's the whole biggest thing. It's not even about adaptability and, adapting life. It's about acceptance. And it's about knowing that despite your challenges, people are going to treat you the way you should be treated, which is like a normal person. And, I could give you another example where people would come up to me and they would talk to me like, oh, like a little baby. Oh, are you having a good day, sweetie? What are you doing, honey? Are you having a good day? It's like, don't talk to me like I'm freaking 4. I'm 27 years old, and you're talking to me like I'm freaking 5. Shut your damn mouth and leave me alone. And that's the whole biggest thing. Yes, there's going to be challenges that you face. There's going to be, obstacles in your way. But disability doesn't have to define who you are. It's a part of who you are, yes. But it's not you. It doesn't describe you as a person. You have challenges that you face every day, and so does everybody else in the world. So when people say to me like, oh, I feel so bad for you, I can't imagine what you go through. I literally want to go up to them and slap them when they say that. It's like, you know what? You can't imagine what I go through, and it's not easy. But if you're telling me, oh, I feel so bad for you and stuff like that, that doesn't make it any easier. It's almost like a reminder that you have a disability. It's almost like a reminder that you have something wrong with you. Instead of just going up to me and saying, how's your day, Christian? What's going on, Christian? Things like that. Treat us like normal people. Treat us like beings with thoughts and feelings like everybody else. Because not everybody does that. And that's the whole big point I want to talk about today. Adaptability and acceptance. You know, a lot of people see people with disabilities and they just discard them. I was watching a documentary about these children in China, and they would be placed in what was called the dying rooms. And some of these children would obviously have cerebral palsy, some of them had Down syndrome or whatever, and they would just be left there to die because these people thought they weren't worth it. These people were so closed-minded and so ignorant that they didn't even give these people a chance. I was watching another documentary, and I think I mentioned this before. It's called The Boy from Maybe House 10. This kid in Russia, his name was Vanya, but his English name is John. He was adopted, thank God. But he was in an orphanage where he was treated like an imbecile, like he had no brain or no way to function, just because he had cerebral palsy. And it irritated me because I'm looking at this bright guy. He wasn't a stupid guy. He's a bright guy, and they're treating him like he was an imbecile, like he wasn't even worth it. And that's what I feel like when people say, oh, I feel so bad for you, or, oh, I feel so, life must be so hard for you, or whatever. Yes, it is hard, but isn't your life hard? Don't you have challenges and struggles that you go through too? Everybody has challenges that they face. Everybody has struggles. And this is just what I deal with. For the most part, I would like to be treated like a normal person. So instead of going up to a person with a disability and say, oh, I feel so bad for you, or how could you do things like dancing or whatever, go up to them and say, how do you do that with your situation? Or you know what would be even better? What could I do to help you? That's the biggest thing that people don't realize. A lot of people with disabilities, they're just looking for acceptance. They're looking for adaptability. They're looking for love. So all you have to say is, what can I do to help you today? What can I do to make your life easier? Instead of talking to me like a baby, like, oh, you poor, poor disabled guy. Oh, you poor, poor disabled soul. Life must be so hard for you. Don't treat me like I'm 5. Treat us like we're normal people. If you're curious to know something about us, just ask us. Come up to us and say, hey, I'm curious as to what you deal with every day. Can you talk about it or enlighten me about it? Don't treat us like we're just garbage on the street. And some people do that. They don't even want to take the time to get to know us at all. And that's what I wanted to touch on today. So I'm just going to close with this. The next time you see a person in a wheelchair or a person with Down syndrome or any other disability, don't think to yourself, oh, I feel so bad for them. Go up to them and get to know them. Get to know their likes, get to know their dislikes, get to know what they're about, and treat them like a normal person. Because isn't that the way anybody wants to be treated? Like a normal person with kindness and love? That's the way I want to be treated, and I'm sure you do too. Thank you for your time today, and God bless you all.